Bismillah Rahman Rahim. Welcome to this, the first part of our writing course. And the first step that we should be talking about, the first concept is writing top down, in which we focus on providing the context and the big picture. So this advice can be summarized as simply as context, context, context. In other words, there is a dire need to emphasize the context in everything that we specify. And before we delve into the details, we provide the big picture. So, like I mentioned in the introductory lecture, this approach is the approach taken in the famous book by Kurose and Ross, known as Computer Networking, a top-down approach, in which the author Jim Kurose and Keith Ross, they take what is known as a top-down approach. People familiar with this book would know that in this book, the authors start with the things, the concrete things that the people already know, and then they work their way through the concepts, increasingly providing more complex ideas, but starting from what the readers know. So for example, they start from the applications and then they proceed towards more abstract topics. In other words, we start with the big idea, and then we can go deeper and deeper and show the finer details. So Jim Kurose actually has a presentation on writing a paper, and in which basically he takes the same approach of writing top down. So I'm going to give you an excerpt from his presentation, in which he says that writing top down is, in fact, thinking top down is how most people and most computer scientists, how they think. So accordingly, we should first of all state the broad themes, the main ideas, before going into the detail. We shall see that the other approach, which is also common, is more confusing, in which you start with the details and then you come up to the ideas. If we actually observe how things happen in practice, then often it is through a lot of error and trial and a lot of details and thinking over it. You synthesize the big idea, but it is recommended that when you're communicating, you actually focus on the context, the theme, the ideas first, and then you go into the details. And even when going into the detail, you again write top down. Some other authors call this taking a pyramid approach, for reasons we shall be seeing shortly. So in other words, Jim Kurose recommends, and we concur, that it is the job of the author to describe the things in a way that the audience or the readers are primed to receive, and also in a way they are motivated. In other words, we should describe the big picture. We should say why our work is important. We should describe how the work is novel, how is the work interesting, and why should they care. It's not as important to describe the personal challenges you faced and also the unique chronology or the time sequence of the events that you experienced. The important thing is that once you have done the work, you can reflect on what you've learned and then describe it in a way in which you describe the principles first and then the details. So let me just highlight the emphasized words. Here, when I say important, it basically means that why should the reader care about the research problem you're focusing on, and what practical benefit it can bring, or for example, what applications can it drive, or what applications can benefit from the research that you're doing. When we talk of novelty, it basically means that is your idea new, or are you giving some new results, or are you extending the findings of the people. For a research paper to be publishable, there has to be something new about it. In other words, we don't want a paper that is simply a rehash of old ideas. It is simply a waste of time to publish this, because with too much work, it becomes difficult to find the ideas. There becomes too much literature to actually go through. So it is in the interest of the research community that we only publish work that is novel, that adds something to the body of knowledge. So when you're writing a paper, you should describe this. You should describe how your work adds to the body of knowledge. This is very important. You should not simply be describing what you did. Think about the reader and think about the research community and describe how your work is actually creating value for the community. So when you start reading a lot of papers, you will develop this perspective. But it's important as a novice writer that you know that there is this practice in the research community in which we gauge the novelty of the work, and because the reviewers of your work will be looking for this, it will be a good practice for you to describe this clearly. And also, why is this work or your approach interesting? Is there some intellectual nugget somewhere there, or are you just crunching the numbers and just basically not adding anything new? So people are interested in finding ideas that they can also use in their work. So if there is such an idea, you should describe it and you should state why this is interesting and why people should pay attention. Another idea that some experts have recommended. So this book, which I talked about in the introductory lecture, is a very good book. It is written by Barbara Minto, who is a former McKinsey executive. McKinsey जो company है strategy और consulting में काम करते हैं. So their job is to work with business people, decision makers, and in their job as well, it's very important that they write and communicate well in a way that is not only grammatically correct, but also logically correct. And it presents the information in a persuasive, scientific way. So Barbara Minto analyzed the needs of this consulting company, and actually the needs are quite similar to what is needed in scientific writing. And she recommends that all ideas in technical writing should always form a pyramid under a single thought. So this is the idea that is represented here. So you see a pyramid here and also the hint here. The pyramid idea obviously does not mean that you should write your work in the form of a pyramid, but it basically means that there should be one single unifying theme or big idea, and then you should have details coming below it. And at every level, you should have supporting evidence below that level. But if you are asked to describe the paper briefly and concisely, you should be able to do that. So in a way, many people, when they actually do the work, they come up and they focus on the low level details. So if you see this hierarchy, many people just focus on the lower level stuff. And if you start by describing the lower level stuff, you will very easily tire the person. And the person will very soon lose the ability to actually make sense of the so many things that you are telling the person. On the other hand, if you start from the simple single idea at the top, then you can convince the person that this is the idea and it is worth exploring. And then you can then show more and more things in support of your main idea. So we recommend that instead of starting with the low level details, you should spend some time on synthesizing your work and developing a structure. And through it, you will arrange your thoughts in a pyramid like shape in which there is a lot of stuff at the bottom, but at the top, you have distilled the idea to its essential core. So that is what we are looking for. You should be able to very briefly describe what the main idea of your work is. And this is why you will sometimes see that your supervisors, they may challenge you to describe your work in very few words. And they may say, what can you describe your problem in one paragraph? Can you describe your problem in a single sentence? This is why people write abstracts and they write title, because despite the multitude of details in your work, eventually you can distill the idea into something that is brief. And according to whatever space is available, you can abstract the idea there. So this is known as synthesis. So the process of synthesis is recommended. It is recommended that you do not just simply put all the details in front of the reader. You should do the job of synthesis and you should describe the big idea, and communication should be top down. In other words, before you can write, you should actually perform part one, which is you should synthesize and structure the information that you want to give. And then once you've done that, you have the abstract ideas in front of you, talk of the big ideas, and then go on to provide all the necessary evidence and the supporting facts. So this is also known as the pyramid principle, in which we talk of the big stuff first and then the details. This is in contrast to the traditional narrative approach, in which you take a meandering approach, you talk about many things, and at the end of the paper, you would have your big idea. Now, the risk in such an approach is that in the 21st century, people do not have very long attention spans, and you are often competing for attention. And also another factor is that people can actually hold very few things in their memory at the same time. So instead of giving a lot of detail and a lot of evidence first up, we recommend that you take the pyramid approach and you provide the end answer first, and then you provide all the supporting evidence that you discovered in a logical fashion. So this would result in a paper structure that is something like this. You would have an introduction section that introduces both the paper, the topic, and also the novelty of your work, the research problem that you are solving, what is the motivation of it, how is it interesting, how does your approach add to the body of knowledge, what your paper is structured like. All of that would be in the intro section. And then it is recommended that you have some sections in which you present your key ideas. And then you can go to the technical meat. So it's not necessary that every paper has so many sections. In fact, you will seldom find that a paper would have so many sections. But the idea is that you provide the big level idea, and then you focus on the key ideas. The reason is that almost no one would be interested in your work as much as you are. So you should not assume that your reader will be interested automatically in discovering everything that you have discovered. So mostly because they have their own circumstances, they will only be interested in knowing the big things, the big ideas, the ideas that they can also use in their own work. So they would expect that you should also be providing some takeaway messages, some key insights, and you cannot really bank upon the reader to pick it from your work if you do not describe it yourself. So this is the part one that we described on the last slide, and we said that you should synthesize and structure. So we recommend that you try to find the big ideas and you state them explicitly. So this is also written on the slide that you see, that it is recommended that you state the key ideas and also you illustrate them, for example, through examples, simple examples that are just complicated enough or such, or they're just rich enough to show the idea and no more complex. So for example, if your idea can be demonstrated in a small network of 3 nodes, then you just show it with 3 nodes instead of showing it with 100 nodes. It will only complicate the exposition. So when you are trying to explain, you look for the smallest, simplest example that can help communicate the idea. And this illustration should ideally come in the earlier sections in which you are explaining the key ideas. So you can imagine this illustration to be a demonstration of your main principles, your main ideas in practice. So all throughout this course, I will try to highlight some frequently observed mistakes and also some ideas that you can actually use in your own work. So we start with the frequently observed mistakes for this part, in which we're talking about writing top down. So a frequently observed mistake is that novice writers, they just simply provide a laundry list of items. So a laundry list of items basically means that, for example, if you are going to the market, you just jot down everything that you want to get from the market. In a similar way, many authors, they describe the related work in a similar fashion, which can be called just like dumping stuff. So they would say, for example, they would have a paragraph in which the first sentence would be author A did this. The second sentence would be author B did this. Author C did this in the next sentence. And that will be it. No effort is spent on actually trying to relate this work to the current work that you're doing. Similarly, it is very common to see that authors would simply write in their contributions. Even people who know that they have to talk about the contributions of their work, they would simply write something like, we did this, then we did this, and we did this. And this is written in the fashion of a laundry list. But the key factor that is missing here is the big picture, or the key context about how this thing is related to your work. So for example, in related work, you should describe not only what the authors did, but you should describe how the related work relates to your approach. What are the ideas from the previous work that you can reuse, or indeed what you have reused. So the related work section, some people only make use of this to score points, in which they are just highlighting the deficiencies of the previous work and just trying to show that their work is different or their work is better. A more profitable way, a more effective way would actually to be more rational about it, except that the previous approaches did have some merit and therefore they were published. You should try to acknowledge the good work that they've done and describe what ideas you can use from the previous work. And there are almost always, there are ideas that you can use. So this is in fact the reason that it is recommended that you do a literature review, so that you can reuse the ideas in the new context you're working in. So for the related work section, the important thing is that you describe how the previous works relate to your work and your approach. So this element has to be emphasized. Similarly, when we are talking of contributions, you should describe mainly about how your work extends the state of the art and adds to the body of knowledge. This is what the reviewer is interested in. And this is also what the research community is interested in. They don't want to publish something that is simply another instantiation of a previous concept, which is adding nothing to the body of knowledge. When your paper is published, when it is ready to be published, it would have something that actually increases the body of the knowledge in some way. And you should be focused on finding that. And a key step towards that is not to only describe that we did this and we did this and we did this. You should describe how your work relates to the previous work. In what ways are you improving? Are you the first one to do something? If that is the case, just state it. If your approach has improved the state of the art by some measure, just report that. This is equally important rather than just saying the steps that you took. Similarly, it is also common to find that people make use of uninformative figure captions and table captions. They would just have canned section headings, in the sense that sometimes, if for a journal paper, what kinds of section headings you would have. You would have an introduction, you would have related work, you would have some methodology, you would have some results, and then you would have conclusions. So many people don't look beyond this, and this actually hurts the communication, because sometimes by using the right caption, the right heading, you can actually convey a lot. So this is a mistake that many people make. Another mistake that people make is that they may think that they can actually impress the reviewers by just making their paper more complex. So interestingly, such a thing happens in which people find and they actually want to introduce more convolution, more maths that just is mystifying to the reader, just because they want their paper to look more sophisticated. So this is known as dazzling through convolution or mathematics. Examples of this would be like, these are actual things that people have said and experienced. So some people might say that if it is so simple, it cannot be sophisticated enough to be published, because your job as a writer is to make things clear. But this is at somewhat of an odds with the need to have novelty and sophistication. So many a times people, just to look more sophisticated, add complex acronyms and complex mathematics without introducing, just so that it does appear complex. In a related vein, people do sometimes say that if it is easy to understand, that it cannot be profound. If it's so clear, then it is easy to tell when the ideas are wrong. So these are all impediments that people face to clear writing. So my suggestion would be to not be, you should not let these ideas stop you. You should improve your writing, make it clear, and you should ensure that your ideas are not wrong. And actually, if you write clearly, the scientific community benefits. The knowledge actually benefits. Wrong information is not pushed. So this is very important, that we learn and we emphasize that we should be writing clearly. Also, another common mistake is that when you're making use of taxonomies or hierarchies, then it is commonly seen that people make use of taxonomies that are not at the same level. So for example, अगर आप एक hierarchy बना रहे हैं, एक tree बना रहे हैं, उसमें एक level पर जो चीज़ होती है, it should be similarly scoped. So for example, if you have written of the 3 boxes at the second layer, if 2 of them are written as verbs, then the third one should also be written like a verb. This is just grammatical parallelism. You would like एक ही तरह चीजें लिखी हों consistently. But this is also seen in other ways. So for example, आप चीज़ों को categorize कर रहे हैं, लेकिन जिस तरह की आप category बना रहे हैं वो exhaustive नहीं है और उसमें कुछ गलती है. उसमें हो सकता है कि जो categorization है वो distinct भी नहीं है. हम थोड़ी देर में ये चीज़ देखेंगे कि it is necessary that when you are categorizing things or you're making a taxonomy, they are collectively exhaustive. Exhaustive भी हो, यानी सारी possibilities को आप explore कर रहे हो और वो mutually exclusive भी हो. Because if you have definitions that overlap, then it becomes difficult to distinguish between the things और वो फिर different entities भी नहीं रहती. तो ये एक common mistake है. अगर आप categorize कर रहे हैं तो make sure that the things at the same level actually belong together. You would also have sometimes things that are not mutually exclusive. तो इसीलिए आप देखें ये जो mutually और exclusive को एक दूसरे के ऊपर मैंने चढ़ा के लिखा कि इसी तरह कई दफ़ा आपकी categories आपस में overlap कर रही होती हैं. तो ये एक अच्छी प्रैक्टिस नहीं है. वैसे भी जब हम किसी चीज़ को define भी करते हैं तो उसमें कहा जाता है कि आपकी definition जो है वो जामे भी होनी चाहिए और माने भी होनी चाहिए, जिसका मतलब है कि वो कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव भी हो, जो जो चीज़ें उस एंटिटी का पार्ट हैं उसको वो कैप्चर कर रहा हो, लेकिन साथ ही साथ वो माने भी हो कि जो चीज़ें उससे बाहर हैं उसको वो एक्सक्लूड भी कर रहा हो. इसी तरह यहाँ जब आप किसी चीज़ को कैटेगराइज कर रहे हैं, we would like that all of these categories should be distinct. They should not be overlapping because then you cannot clearly distinguish them. Sometimes you would have taxonomies or categorization that is not collectively exhaustive. तो इसका नुकसान ये होता है कि आपकी possibilities कुछ होती हैं जो आप consider ही नहीं कर रहे. आप कह रहे हैं कि इस काम को करने के 2 तरीके हैं, लेकिन हो सकता है उसको करने के 5 तरीके हों. तो आपने जो अभी तक चीज़ सोची है वो complete नहीं है. So we would say that your thinking is currently not exhaustive. तो ये 2 concepts हैं कि इसको हम बाद में देखेंगे. इसका नाम भी है mutually exclusive, collectively exhaustive. इसको एक principle का नाम भी दिया हुआ है जिसको हम कहते हैं MECE principle, MECE principle. ये आपको बड़ा help करेगा. ये मैकेंसी कंपनी के अंदर इसको पहली दफ़ा प्रमोट किया गया था, and now it is a big part of that company, and it is also used in many other companies to help crystallize thoughts. When you are thinking about the range of possibilities, it helps us to think about the various ways things can be done. और फिर वहाँ it is important that your ideas are mutually exclusive and collectively exhaustive. After talking about some common mistakes, let me also talk about things to do. So because we are talking about writing top down, it's important that we focus on showing the big picture. ये आप काफ़ी दफ़ा सुनेंगे कि हमें big picture दिखानी चाहिए. Big picture का मतलब ये है कि rather than just staying at the low level, you should zoom out a little and see the big patterns that emerge. तो इसके लिए एक term इस्तेमाल होती है showing the forest for the trees, जिसका idea ये है कि अगर आप एक forest के अंदर ज़मीन पे चल रहे हैं तो फिर आपको सिर्फ दरख्त नज़र आ रहे हैं करीब करीब के, लेकिन अगर आप थोड़ा सा zoom out करें, आप एक जहाज से इस फॉरेस्ट के ऊपर से जा रहे हो तो फिर आपको फॉरेस्ट पूरा का पूरा नजर आता है और आपको वो चीजें भी नजर आती हैं जो पैटर्न्स आपको एट द ग्राउंड नजर नहीं आ रहे, और ये जो पैटर्न्स होते हैं ये बहुत यूजफुल होते हैं बिकॉज दे हेल्प यू इन थिंकिंग, दे हेल्प यू इन सीइंग थिंग्स जो कि वैसे हो सकता है आपको आप experience तो कर रहे हैं पर आप you're not able to make sense of it. So it's important that we are able to see the big picture, and also as a writer we are able to show the big picture. इसके अंदर मैंने आपको बताया कि जो मिंटो पिरामिड प्रिंसिपल है, मैकेंसी की ऑथर बारबरा मिंटो ने जो किताब लिखी है, she actually popularized this approach, जिसको कहा जाता है MECE प्रिंसिपल. MECE इसी तरह वो इसको प्रोनाउंस भी करते हैं. इसका मतलब है म्यूचुअली एक्सक्लूसिव कलेक्टिवली एग्जॉस्टिव. इसका मतलब ये है कि आप पहली बात तो ये है कि आप कोशिश करें कि अपने आइडियाज को पिरामिड की तरह बनाएं, जिसमें ऊपर एक आइडिया है, फिर उसके नीचे यू हैव मल्टीपल सपोर्टिंग आर्ग्यूमेंट्स, एंड द आइडिया इज दैट दीज सपोर्टिंग आर्ग्यूमेंट्स शुड बी म्यूचुअली एक्सक्लूसिव एंड कलेक्टिवली एग्जॉस्टिव. ये इस तरह भी अप्लाई करता है, और मैंने आपको जिस तरह बताया पहले कि आप चीज़ों को कैटेगराइज कर रहे हैं, टेक्सोनॉमी बना रहे हैं, वहाँ भी ये चीज़ अप्लाई करता है. ये जो टेक्सोनॉमीज हैं ये बहुत यूजफुल होती हैं जब आप किसी एक नए डिसिप्लिन में जा रहे हैं और आप देखना चाह रहे हैं कि इस डिसिप्लिन में क्या क्या काम करने वाले हैं, उनको करने के क्या क्या तरीके हैं. तो उसके लिए आमतौर पर फिर लोग, जैसे सर्वे आर्टिकल्स में होता है कि आप फिर टेक्सोनॉमीज का इस्तेमाल करते हैं, और फिर टेक्सोनॉमी में यू मे हैव अ हायरार्की, एक लेवल पर एक ही तरह की चीज़ें होती हैं, और फिर आगे अगले लेवल में उनको हम मज़ीद कैटेगराइज करते हैं कि इस चीज़ के कितने और तरीके हैं करने के. सो इसके अंदर दिस आइडिया इज़ हेल्पफुल, म्यूचुअली एक्सक्लूसिव एंड कलेक्टिवली एग्जॉस्टिव. इस केस में अगर जैसे आपके पास 3 आइडियाज़ हैं, तो the intent here is that these ideas should be distinct, क्योंकि आप उनको एक दूसरे के खिलाफ जो प्रेजेंट कर रहे हैं, कंपेयर एंड कंट्रास्ट कर रहे हैं, तो you would like that they be distinct from each other. ये जो distinct रहने वाली बात है, this is known as mutually exclusive. The other aspect is that you should exhaust the space by thinking about all of the ideas and all of the possibilities. And this is known as collectively exhaustive. This helps us in thinking and covering the complete whole. So सारी possibilities consider हो जाती हैं, और इस चीज़ का risk कम हो जाता है कि you might be missing or overlooking something important. Another aspect related to showing the forest for the trees is to always provide the context. और इसमें क्या क्या चीज़ें आ सकती हैं? You should always focus on providing the context and not just the technical details. हमने बात की कि you should talk of the work's importance, novelty, non-triviality and contributions. Non-triviality कभी कभी टर्म इस्तेमाल होती है, इसका मतलब ये होता है कि आपका काम बिल्कुल ट्रिवियल ना हो. ट्रिवियल काम का मतलब है कि ऐसी चीज़ जिसकी कोई इम्पोर्टेंस नहीं है, इसके अंदर कोई सिग्निफिकेंस नहीं है. तो अगर आप शो कर रहे हैं कि नहीं आपका काम इम्पोर्टेंट है, उसकी सिग्निफिकेंस है, तो बेसिकली आप उसकी नॉन ट्रिवियलिटी शो कर रहे हैं. इसका मतलब ये भी है कि आपका काम बिल्कुल सिंपलिस्टिक ना हो. अगर काम बहुत ज़्यादा सिंपलिस्टिक है, उसमें कोई sophistication नहीं है, तो we can say that the work is trivial. So if you are doing research and you spend a lot of time, then it is a good sign of research that it is non-trivial, and you come up with some fundamental insights. So whatever those insights are, you should synthesize and present the big ideas, and also demonstrate how your work is non-trivial. Another place where you can provide the context is in the figure captions and the table captions. You should use this very carefully, and you should compare and contrast. You should emphasize what is the take-home message, because you know, when a reader would be reading it, So the reader may not be able to see the things that you want to show. So it helps to emphasize and clearly and explicitly state what is the take-home message. So this is what is stated here, that what may be obvious to you may not be obvious to others. So don't take the risk and clearly state what you think is the most important insight. You should always do that when you are making use of figures and tables. These are great opportunities that you should always leverage to communicate the context. Also, I've mentioned that you should not just simply provide a laundry list of related work. You should describe how those works relate to your work. This is why this is known as related work. It's the onus is on you to establish the relation. Also, you should make use of taxonomies to show relations. Taxonomies basically एक ट्री की तरह होगा या categorization है of how things can be divided. तो जब आपने relations देखने हैं, आपने देखना है एक whole किस तरह divide होता है, क्या क्या categories available हैं, तो उसके लिए we make use of taxonomies. And for that, you should make use of the MECE principle, the mutually exclusive, collectively exhaustive principle, जो कि एक बहुत valuable insight है, जो आपको थोड़ा सा मजीद देखना चाहिए और प्रैक्टिस करना चाहिए. जब आप प्रैक्टिस करेंगे, सिर्फ आपकी राइटिंग अच्छी नहीं होगी, आपकी थिंकिंग भी अच्छी होगी. बहुत सारी चीजें पहले हो सकता है आप कंसिडर ही ना कर रहे हो. Another thing to remember is good writing is actually good thinking. And good thinking leads to good writing. तो आपको थोड़ी सी साइकोलॉजी भी पढ़नी चाहिए, आपको थोड़े कॉग्निटिव बायसेस भी पढ़ने चाहिए, आपको पता होना चाहिए कि what are the simple ways in which human beings may be fooled. तो इस पर बहुत सारी रिसर्च है, जैसे डैनियल कानेमन की किताब है थिंकिंग फास्ट एंड स्लो, और भी बहुत सारी किताबें हैं कॉग्निटिव बायसेस के बारे में और लॉजिकल फैलेसीज के बारे में. तो आप वो पढ़ें. अगर आपकी थिंकिंग इम्प्रूव हो रही है तो आपकी राइटिंग भी इम्प्रूव हो रही होगी. और ये लॉजिकल थिंकिंग में ये मीसी प्रिंसिपल हेल्प करता है. तो इसको आप थोड़ा सीखें और कोशिश करें कि अपने काम में आप इन्फोर्स करें. एक एग्जाम्पल जिसके अंदर हम फिगर कैप्शन को इस्तेमाल कर रहे हैं. अभी ये जो the figure that you see on this slide is actually from a blog post from a former professor and now Google software engineer Matt Welch, who on this blog post का title है Why I Gave Your Paper a Strong Reject. तो ये पेपर अच्छा है काफी, just to see the perspective of the reviewers, कि वो जब पेपर रिव्यू करते हैं तो क्या उनको common mistakes नजर आती हैं. अगर हम उनको सबको पढ़ लें और उनको अवॉइड करें तो we would have a very good chance of getting our papers published and also of avoiding common pitfalls. So he recommends that you should make use of explanatory figure captions. तो ये जो figure caption है इसमें matter of fact description है, लिखा हुआ है radio link quality variation across sensor nodes. तो this is okay, but this is not great because we are not completely making use of the opportunity that the figure caption provides. Also, if you look at the figure, तो इसमें बहुत सारी different इसके अंदर erratic lines हैं. It's difficult to see कि क्या इसमें what is the main picture. आपको ये भी पता होना चाहिए कि आपका पेपर हर बंदा बहुत ज़्यादा carefully या deeply नहीं पढ़ेगा. Most people will just skim your paper. Most people will just read the abstract and the conclusion. And some of the people might see your figures. So it is very helpful if you can communicate through the figure as well. And if you make use of the caption, this gives you more of an opportunity. So for example, if we modify this caption and add some more description. So for example, we have added 3 sentences And through this, a lot of context is now provided. So you also have a take-home message. So this may be, this actually is a good practice you should use. And you should also remember that too much of a good thing can be bad. So for example, if I have seen this with my students, I often recommend to them that they should make use of explanatory figure captions, but they sometimes write so much in the figure caption that it starts to appear like a paragraph. It should be never more than 4 lines. Ideally, it should be 2 or 3 lines. So if you can summarize the main insight in one more sentence, perfect. If you need, okay, make use of 2 short sentences. But remember, the longer your caption is, the purpose of the caption would be lost, which is to capture the attention and to concisely communicate the main insight. So to summarize, you should make use of the figure captions absolutely for communicating the take-home message. Remember, your job is not just simply to plot the numbers and just ask the reader to say, to see at the numbers and to see at the graph, because that is often too much of a burden on the reader, and the reader in many cases would miss the big picture. It's important for you to highlight what the big picture take-home messages. So with this, Alhamdulillah, we've come to the end of part 1. We shall come again with the next part in due time. Till then, take care.